The ring he hid wasn't mine. And that's when I planned his goodbye. The first time my heart broke, it didn't shatter loudly. It split quietly, inside the pocket of the man I thought I'd marry. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I smiled and started paying attention. Because betrayal doesn't always announce itself with lipstick stains or midnight texts. Sometimes it hides in velvet. Sometimes it weighs just enough to pull your future out of alignment. This isn't a story about revenge fueled by rage. It's about patience, precision, and poetic justice served cold enough to leave scars. This is the story of the ring that wasn't meant for me, and the man who underestimated what I'd do once I knew. Before I continue, please subscribe to my channel to see more interesting stories. Thank you. The weight in his pocket. I felt it before I saw it. We were standing on the Brooklyn Bridge, the city glowing like it always does when love feels permanent. Ethan slipped his arm around my waist, his coat brushing against my hand, and that's when I felt it. A small box. Square. Heavy. My breath caught. 5 years together. Late nights. Shared keys. Whispered plans. This had to be it. But when I looked up at him, his face didn't hold excitement. It held panic. He shifted, stepped back, changed the subject. That night, while he showered in our apartment overlooking the East River, I reached into his coat pocket. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped it. Black velvet box. Inside, a diamond ring. Beautiful. Classic. Expensive. And engraved on the inside band were 3 words that froze my blood.
Forever your Elle.
My name is Ava. I sat on the bed as the water ran, my heartbeat drowning out every sound. I didn't confront him. I didn't cry. I closed the box, put it back, and realized something terrifying. I was living with a stranger, and strangers don't deserve loyalty. The woman named Elle. I became quiet after that. Not distant, dangerously observant. Ethan didn't notice. Men rarely do when they think you're still in love. We flew to Chicago that weekend for his work conference. I smiled through dinners, laughed on cue, and watched him text someone under the table. He said it was his sister. He doesn't have one. One night, while he slept, I used Face ID on his phone. He'd never changed it because trust makes people lazy. Her name was Lena. Photos. Voice notes. Weekend plans in San Francisco. And worst of all, screenshots of the ring. My ring. He'd sent her photo with the caption,
Soon.
"Just need to end things cleanly."
Cleanly.
I felt something inside me go still.
Calm.
Focused. This wasn't heartbreak anymore. It was strategy. Because if Ethan thought he was planning a quiet exit, he had no idea he'd just handed me the blueprint to destroy his illusion. Without ever raising my voice, I played the loving girlfriend. Back in New York, I became everything Ethan wanted. Supportive, affectionate, unquestioning. I cooked his favorite meals,
Went to his networking events.
listened when he complained about pressure. I even helped him prep for a massive real estate pitch in Los Angeles, one that could triple his income. What he didn't know was that the firm he was pitching to, they were my firm's biggest client. I was the one who'd recommended him. And now I was documenting everything.
Dates. Lies.
Receipts. I met Lena accidentally, on purpose, at a cafe in Soho. She didn't know who I was. She talked about Ethan like he was already hers. He says he's almost free, she smiled. I nodded politely. Because freedom, I'd learned, is relative. The proposal, he didn't expect. Aspen was his choice.
Snow.
Fireplaces. A picture-perfect backdrop for betrayal. Ethan proposed to me there. On one knee. Same ring. I almost laughed. I said yes. Lena found out 2 hours later because I made sure she did. But I wasn't done. Because saying yes wasn't forgiveness. It was permission. The trap begins to close. I started making calls. Quiet ones. By the time we returned to New York, Ethan was floating, engaged, promoted, admired. What he didn't know was that every door opening for him was one I controlled, and I was about to close them all. Slowly. I met his future without him. Lena thought she was winning. I knew because she messaged me from Ethan's phone. Please stop calling him. He's moved on. I stared at the screen, amused by how confidently wrong she was. Instead of replying, I invited her to lunch. She didn't recognize me when she walked into the restaurant in San Francisco. Tall heels, nervous smile, hope stitched into her posture. I introduced myself as Ava, an architectural consultant. Not the Ava. We talked for an hour. Careers. Men. Red flags. She told me Ethan promised her a future. A house in the hills.
Kids.
Stability. I told her stability is an illusion when built on borrowed time. Before we parted, I said softly, just make sure the ring you're waiting for isn't already spoken for. Her smile cracked. That night, Ethan called me frantic. She's acting weird, he said, asking questions. I rubbed his back like a devoted fiancé. Probably just insecurity, I whispered. Insecurity wasn't the problem. Truth was starting to leak. The promotion that needed my signature. Ethan's big break came faster than expected. The LA firm loved his pitch. Contracts were drafted. Champagne was poured. He hugged me in our kitchen like a man who thought he'd won everything. What he didn't know. Final approval required a conflict of interest review.
Mine.
I was the senior project manager assigned to oversee the partnership. I read his file slowly. Ethics clauses. Transparency agreements. Relationship disclosures. There it was. A clause requiring disclosure of romantic involvement with any associated stakeholders. Lena's company was subcontracted. I documented everything. Ethan kissed me that night, whispering about forever. I smiled into his shoulder, realizing forever is very short when built on lies. The ring goes missing. I removed the ring from his drawer while he slept. Not to steal it, to reposition it. 2 days later, I left it intentionally in his office desk. Lena found it. She called him screaming, accusing, crying. He came home shaking, asking me if I'd touched his things. I looked him dead in the eyes and said,
No.
Why? That was the moment he realized he was losing control. And men like Ethan don't fear being caught. They fear not knowing who's watching. I let him confess, almost. He sat me down. I need to tell you something, he said. I held my breath, letting silence do the work. I've been under pressure. I made mistakes. Nothing physical. I nodded slowly. You're lying, I said gently. His face drained. I stood, walked to the window, and added, but you don't have to tell me everything. I trust you. That broke him more than anger ever could. Because trust, when undeserved, feels like a mirror. And he didn't like his reflection. The invitation that changed everything. I sent out engagement invitations.
Friends.
Family.
Colleagues. And one extra name. Lena Hart.
She RSVP'd yes. Ethan didn't know.
Yet.
The woman who finally asked my name. Lena arrived early to the engagement dinner. She wore white. Not bridal, defiant. I watched her from across the room as she scanned faces, searching for the woman who had replaced her. When our eyes met, something shifted. Recognition didn't come immediately, but instinct did. She approached me slowly. You're Ava, she said. Yes, I replied, extending my hand. You must be one of Ethan's colleagues. Her grip tightened. No, she said. I'm not. We sat together while Ethan worked the room, blissfully unaware. Lena showed me messages, promises, photos I had already memorized. I didn't know about you, she whispered. I know, I said. That's when she asked the question that mattered most. Did he ever mean to tell you? I took a sip of my wine.
No.
I offered her the truth, not forgiveness. We met again the next morning in Central Park.
No teatrix. No accusations.
Just truth. I told her everything. How I found the ring, how long I'd known, how deeply he'd lied. She cried quietly, the way women do when betrayal finally feels real. I don't want revenge, she said.
Neither do I, he replied.
I want closure. I handed her copies of emails, contracts,
Dates.
What you do with this is up to you, I said. But if you stay silent, he wins. She nodded, and for the first time, Ethan lost something he didn't know he needed: control over the narrative. His world starts to question him. The firm called Ethan in for a review. Confidential, they said.
Routine, they said.
He came home pale. They're asking about conflicts of interest, he muttered. I placed a hand on his chest. Tell the truth, I said softly. He laughed too loudly. That could ruin everything. I thought of the ring, of Lena, of myself, smiling through lies. Then maybe everything deserves to be ruined, I said.
He didn't hear me.
The night he slept on the couch, Ethan didn't come to bed. He sat in the dark living room, scrolling endlessly, refreshing emails, waiting for reassurance that never came. I stood in the doorway and watched him unravel. Do you still love me? He asked. I considered lying. I love who I thought you were, I said. That night, something between us died quietly. And when lies die, they leave behind evidence. The speech I was practicing alone. I started writing vows. Not for him. For myself. Words about honesty, integrity, choosing truth over comfort. I practiced them aloud in the mirror, imagining an audience that didn't yet exist. The wedding was 3 weeks away. Ethan thought the worst was behind him. But storms don't always announce themselves. Sometimes they wait for an audience. The engagement party everyone talked about. The venue overlooked the Hudson. Glass walls, soft lights, curated perfection. Ethan wanted elegance. I wanted witnesses. Friends flew in from Chicago and Seattle. Colleagues from LA toasted to our future. Cameras flashed. Laughter floated. Lena arrived late. I watched Ethan's face drain of color as she crossed the room, calm, composed, wearing navy blue like she belonged there. Because she did. I greeted her like an old friend. Ethan nearly dropped his glass. You invited her? He hissed under his breath. Yes, I smiled. Transparency is important. That word again. The toast that shifted the air. Ethan gave his speech. He talked about love, loyalty,
Growth.
People applauded. Then Lena stood. I wasn't planning to speak, she said, voice steady. But honesty matters. The room stilled. I just want to wish Ava well, she continued, and thank Ethan for teaching me the value of truth eventually.
Gasps.
Whispers. Phones lowered. Ethan stared at me. I raised my glass. Damage control is louder than truth. The next day, blogs picked it up. Nothing explicit, just questions. 2 women. 1 ring. Overlapping timelines. Ethan blamed me. You set me up, he snapped. I looked at him calmly.
No.
I let you finish what you started. He packed a bag that night and left behind the man I no longer recognized. The call he was dreading. The firm suspended him. Pending investigation. Lena submitted her documents.
He submitted Mina.
Ethan called me from his car, voice breaking. You knew, he said. Yes. And you still let me propose? Yes. Silence. Why? He whispered. Because the truth sounds louder when spoken under lights, I said. I took back my name. I removed my engagement ring and placed it on the counter. I won't expose you, I told him. I won't scream or smear. He looked up, hopeful. But I won't save you either. I walked away. And for the first time, the future felt honest. The day his name disappeared. Ethan's fall wasn't dramatic.
No headlines. No viral scandal.
Just absence. His profile vanished from the firm's website. His projects were quietly reassigned. The invitations stopped coming. When people asked about him, responses became vague. He moved on. It didn't work out. There were complications. I heard he tried explaining. That he called it a misunderstanding. That he blamed pressure, ambition, confusion. But reputations aren't destroyed by mistakes. They erode from patterns. And Ethan had left a trail. The ring finds its owner. I mailed the ring back to him. No note. Weeks later, it arrived again, this time with a letter. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I want you to know I never meant to hurt you. I held the ring in my palm, remembering how heavy it felt the first time. Then I did something he never expected. I donated it. The proceeds funded a scholarship for women entering architecture, women who would build futures without needing permission. The ring finally meant something honest. Lena and I crossed paths again. I ran into Lena at LAX. She looked different, lighter. He asked if I'd take him back, she said. And I asked. She smiled sadly.
No.
We hugged, not as allies in revenge, but as women who survived the same lie. Some endings don't need villains. Just clarity. The life that waited for me. 6 months later, I stood on a construction site in Santa Monica, watching a foundation pour. This one was mine. New firm, new projects, new city. People asked if I believed in love anymore. I did. Just not in stories that required silence. I believed in truth that didn't need defending. The ring was never the point. Looking back, I realized the ring was never about commitment. It was about control. About choosing convenience over courage. Ethan lost more than a relationship. He lost the illusion that charm could replace character. And I gained something better than revenge. I gained myself. Because the most painful justice isn't public humiliation. It's living well without the person who thought you couldn't. End of story. If you've ever felt small because someone hid you, remember this. The truth doesn't rush. It waits until the timing hurts just enough to teach. Choose dignity. Choose clarity. And never accept a love that needs hiding. Thank you for listening to my story. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share my videos. Thank you.